Frankfurt, Germany, May 3rd, 1937. The world's largest aircraft, the Hindenburg, prepares to depart for New Jersey. The airship's tanks are full of hydrogen and nitrogen, fueling its 11th transatlantic flight to the United States.
The Hindenburg is a dirigible aircraft that's filled with gas, and that makes it lighter than air, so it can basically float.
Hindenburg provided something that no other type of aircraft could provide. 3-day passage from Europe to the United States in great luxury.
At 7:16 p.m., the Hindenburg takes off for Lakehurst, New Jersey. More than 10 stories tall, stretching 804 feet long, the Hindenburg is roughly the same size as the Titanic. Unlike a hot air balloon, the Hindenburg is a rigid airship constructed with a metal frame.
It's filled with 16 cells of hydrogen gas, which is a gas that's lighter than air, which makes it buoyant. It floats without needing to be lifted up by any sort of wings.
The ship has a triangular structure through the very center that runs all the way. That's actually what the crew would walk across. And around that are these metal frameworks, like the ribs of a barrel. And outside of that is an outer cover, 7 acres of aeronautical cloth that has been painted and carefully sealed so that it is both waterproof but also sturdy for the elements.
Aluminum powder in the varnish is what gave the Hindenburg its silver color, but it also served the purpose of reflecting the sunlight so that the hydrogen gas did not get heated, inflate, and burst.
Beyond its technical achievements, the Hindenburg is a floating representative of a sinister government.
The swastikas emblazoned on the tail were the national flag of Germany at the time. So basically, the Hindenburg served as a flying billboard for the Nazi government in Germany.
Thanks to recent upgrades, the Hindenburg now carries 72 passengers and almost as many crew. A one-way ticket costs roughly $8,500 in today's money.
The Hindenburg was set up for luxurious travel. There were 2 decks that included a dining room, washrooms, a full electric kitchen, and even a smoking lounge. They also had a grand piano that had been constructed of aluminum and covered in pigskin.
For the most part, the Hindenburg would travel about 650 feet above land or sea. Captains were very conscious of the passenger experience, and they would actually lower the altitude to allow them to see amazing sights that no one in humanity ever had, like icebergs from above, floating by.
After a 4-year-long construction process, work on the Hindenburg is completed in 1936. And that spring, it begins its first international flights to the United States and Brazil.
It was spectacularly successful in 1936. It went back and forth across the Atlantic, both the North Atlantic and the South Atlantic. And so they entered the 1937 season with so much pressure on them to make this first North American flight of 1937 a success.
On May 6, 1937, after a nearly 3-day journey, the Hindenburg reaches American soil.
As the Hindenburg is heading for its destination, Lakehurst, New Jersey, there are storms ahead of it. And so the Hindenburg can't land when it's supposed to. It spends hours waiting for the storms to clear up. And there are film crews and radio crews waiting to see this amazing sight.
What the ship is supposed to do is approach a structure known as a mooring mast. And once there, drop the landing ropes. At that point, the ship drops its ballast, and then a crew of about 200 burly men grab a hold of those ropes, attach them to winches, and then start bringing it down to the ground.
Then at 7:25 p.m., disaster strikes.
As the ship is landing, the tail is getting closer and closer to the ground. And they try to release hydrogen in an effort to bring that ship back into level.
The attack motors of the ship are just holding it just enough
Unfortunately, it's just not working. The tail continues to fall below the bow. And then suddenly, an explosion occurs.
Oh my! It burst into flames, 400 or 500 feet into the sky. This is terrible. This is one of the worst catastrophes in the world. There's smoke and there's flames now. Oh, the humanity.
Of the 97 people on board the Hindenburg, 13 passengers, 22 crew, and 1 ground crew person all perished in this event.
It's kind of insane to think that people started jumping from the ship in order to save themselves. Some of them actually died because of the fall.
Miraculously, about 2/3 of the people on actually live through this disaster.
Investigators immediately suspect that sabotage is involved.
Given that it is one of the most visible spectacles on Earth and has a giant swastika on it, naturally that would seem to be the perfect target to take down the Nazis. So everyone immediately thought there must have been a saboteur.
Because the Hindenburg was used as a Nazi propaganda tool, it's a natural target for anti-Nazi activists. The Hindenburg senior captain, Ernst Lehmann, reports that just before leaving Germany, they received a warning that there was a threat to bomb the Hindenburg when it was over American soil.
Hugo Echner was the head of the company that built the aircraft, and he would ultimately indicate that he received threats directly that the aircraft should not proceed to Lakehurst, New Jersey, because something bad would happen there.
Given this warning, the German security before taking off was extremely stringent. They went through the mail, they went through the luggage, and nothing was found, but this was early days of security, and something may have slipped through.
Charles Rosendahl, the commander of NAS Lakehurst, suggested to the FBI that they should investigate a passenger who had a dog in the cargo compartment right around cell 6, and he had been visiting the dog unaccompanied by a member of the ship's crew.
The man with the dog is soon identified as passenger Joseph Spa.
Joseph Spa is born in Germany and then immigrates to the United States as a young boy. He's an entertainer in the tradition of vaudeville. He does monologues, stand-up. He's also an acrobat and a contortionist. And he's been on a tour in Germany, and now he's taking the Hindenburg back home. During the latter part of his German tour, he purchases an expensive German Shepherd puppy named Ulla to use in his act, and he takes Ulla back with him to America. And so Ulla is in a kennel and is kept in the cargo hold of the Hindenburg.
Crew members report that during the flight, Spa insists on feeding the dog himself.
The passengers aren't allowed to simply wander to the cargo bay on their own. That's usually what the crew does. So this behavior gets the crew's attention.
Several of the stewards report that Spa was acting strangely. In particular, when the Hindenburg was delayed for several hours due to the thunderstorms, he had this urgency to land.
He was getting impatient when the Hindenburg was not quite landing on time, which, if you had planted a bomb that, say, had a timer, would be a reasonable thing to be doing.
As investigators learn more about Spa's background, suspicions deepen.
In addition to having visited the inside of the hull of the ship without being accompanied, Joseph Spa is a professional acrobat. He easily could have climbed around the rigging of the ship.
So, because of his acrobat abilities, he could have made his way outside of where he was supposed to be, worked his way to the tail of the aircraft, climbed up a ladder all the way to the top, and placed a time bomb somewhere on the airframe between 2 hydrogen bags, and that explosion could have brought the aircraft down.